Welcome to Mitchell Levy Presents, where I dive into the essential elements of clarity and credibility. Hosted by global credibility expert Mitchell Levy, today's episode offers invaluable insights to make you think and act more credibly. Join us as we explore living your values, boosting your credibility, and leading purposefully. Hi, and welcome, Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert. And we are at one of the most exciting parts of my week. And that's talking to an expert about their leadership, their values, who they are, how they show up in the world. Carl Sharperson, how are you?
I am doing great. If I was any better, I'd change my name to Mitchell.
Yeah, that's too much. Thank you. So, Carl, just so people know, who are you?
Well, I'm a lot of things, but I empower corporate executives not getting what they want. That's the number one thing. I'm a leadership innovation strategist. I help individuals maximize their potential. I'm a father. I'm an executive coach. I'm an elder in my church. Prior military, United States Naval Academy. Division One athlete, football. And I've had a lot of experience. In all of these experiences, there's some common leadership principles that I have identified and use and teach in my life.
So, tell me about being a father. What's that mean to you?
Being a father, one of the things that I think being a father is, and I learned this from, I can't remember where I picked it up, but the role or the saying was success is having healthy, happy, productive grandkids. So you skip a generation. So for me, my number one priority is God. Second priority is family. Third priority are friends, because it's all about relationships. Nobody gets to where they are by themselves. If you think about how you got a job, 9 times out of 10, somebody told you about it, somebody recommended you. That happens 80% of the time. So
Hmm.
fatherhood to me is very, very important. I think it's the most critical thing. I believe that once I made a decision to have young people, then I owe everything in my power to make sure that they're successful. Because if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't be here.
And how many kids?
I have two. I have a 33-year-old son and a 30, no, I got a 36-year-old son and a 34-year-old daughter. My daughter just turned 34, getting
And
in 30s
apparently
up.
you
Big stuff.
just became a grandfather as well.
Yes, sir. Carl Henrik Sharperson the fourth, C4 for
Oh
short.
my. C4. That's awesome. Uh, what is the Navy? How long were you in the Navy?
Well, I actually graduated from the Naval Academy. And when you graduate from the Naval Academy, you can go into the Marine Corps or stay in the Navy. About 10% of the class goes into the Marine Corps. So I decided to go into the Marine Corps, became a pilot in the Marine Corps, and spent 5.5 years in the Marine Corps, flying off ships. Did 2 6-month deployments to the Mediterranean and 1 3-month deployment to the Caribbean while I was in.
Hmm. What were if you're thinking about the Navy, I think about military in such an interesting way. What were the top two or three lessons? We'll start with the top lesson you learned.
Yeah, the biggest lesson I learned through my experience in the military was the brotherhood or the sisterhood that's created. So when I was a freshman, we had people from all over the country, all over the world. So you had people from the country, you had people from the city, you had people playing different sports, you had different people with different religions, nationalities. So one of the things you had to do in the beginning was to get to know each other. And some of those relationships are still very, very close. I mean, I can call somebody up I haven't talked to in several years and
Hmm.
actually talk to them. Example, 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Okay. Not only was I sick, I was broke. I got to a point where I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? So I actually called the president of my class, a guy named Kevin. Kevin contacted a guy named Keith, who was in my company. Keith put together a GoFundMe program before GoFundMe was such a thing. So my classmates and company mates supported me financially for an entire year, many of which I hadn't seen in 30 plus years. But that's the type of bond and brotherhood that you have in the military. That was one of the biggest things that I learned and take away.
Wow. You know, now, did you know that before you went into the Navy? Is that something you knew, or and when I think of it, when I'm asking this question, the question is, did you know the importance of establishing a family and relationships
I did
outside
not.
of the, yeah?
I did not. But one of the things that was one of the things that happens is you get close to people and you have to depend on people, and you just we learn a valuable lesson on how important it is to have authentic relationships. And once you feel and you understand what that is, then I carried it on throughout my life. Any relationships that I had were very similar because I understood the value of close relationships, the value of
Mm,
authentic relationships, and it's nothing like it. It doesn't get any better than that.
nice. Okay, so that's interesting. So that was the military. It's interesting. That's not one of their selling points. That's not one of their slogans, right? But it really could be, um, because it is building trusted, bonded relationships for life.
Right. And what I've seen in life is, for example, when I worked for Procter Gamble, 20% of the managers had some type of military experience, primarily because of the Vietnam War. So when I came into the company, I had a natural kinship to 20% of the managers. So I kind of learned a lot about the processes and the people. I didn't have to start from ground zero. If somebody was in the military, we kind of pick up from there, similar values, similar expectations. You do what you say you're going to do. You take care of your people. So you take that foundation and you jumpstart it and you grow from there. It was invaluable.
So the one thing when I think about the military, the one thing I don't know if I think enough about it is, how do they teach lessons of vulnerability?
The way it happens is if you're familiar with some type of team building processes that people have, so you put in a situation where you have to depend on somebody else, and that's kind of where it starts. And so when you get to a point where you have to depend on somebody, then you have to be vulnerable to that person, and no matter how
Mm,
strong, or because there's a perception where military people aren't warm and fuzzy and do this, do that, very structured. But underneath that is a brotherhood that's built during the boot camp that you go through. There's a breakdown process and there's a building up process.
Now, that boot camp process, is that something that you do in corporate as well when you're working with people? Not necessarily the rigor, right? But
Yeah,
break down and build up, or is it something different?
I think there's ways to duplicate that different, but the outcome is the same. For example, I had a lady that I worked for when I was in Procter and Gamble, and she had a organizational development type background, right? So whenever we had staff meetings, she would always start off by, let's go around the table and check in to see how people are doing. So when you check in on what's going on in your life. So if you have some family issues, or you have some health issues, or you're worried about a child or something like that, and you bring that up, and then the team in there gives suggestions and or helps with that, then at some point in time you get broken down and built up. So I think that's something that I've been able to do in corporate America, to do that. And the other way I think to do that is when I first meet with people, either I join up or they join up, I talk about myself. And when I talk about myself, I'm as authentic as I can. I talk about overcoming cancer. I talk about overcoming brain tumor. So I talk about that. I talk about being called names growing up. Anyway. So the more authentic I am, the more authentic they will be. So that starts some bonding, which is, I wouldn't call it a breakdown, but it's a bonding that occurs because very few people are authentic. Most people are wearing masks and never take it off.
By the way, I love the word authentic, but let's the one issue I have. So I have multiple values of credibility, and the one issue I have with authenticity is you don't have to authentically be a good person. I mean, you could be authentic, right? So another two values is having the intent and commitment to do the right thing. So if you're a servant leader, you're authentic and have the intent and commitment to do the right thing, and you do it through an authentic manner. Now that those four values add a ton of process, which I having talked to you, that's who you are. Um, when when you're asked to go into a company, and it's typically you're asked when there's some corporate exec who's not getting the results they want. What Where do you start?
Well, first they have to be willing to listen. So I've got to have them believe that I can help them. Okay, so let's assume that we start there. Okay, and then the question is, what are your goals? Where do you want to be, and how can I help? And then I help them prioritize what they want to work on, and we work on the number one thing. What I've found over experience is most of the time it's not the X's and the O's. It's not the strategic planning. It's not the processes. Normally, there's some soft skill stuff that come into relationship building or lack of relationship building. Sometimes it's at the home with the wife, with the kids. Um, because if you don't have a happy family, productive family, then you can't produce and work like you should. So most of the time, that's where I spend a lot of time with individuals. And I believe that a general in the military, which is the highest you can be, the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, the CEO of an entrepreneur company, or superintendent of school, they've all got one thing in common. They don't have anybody they can talk to. The higher you get, the more your behind is exposed and the less people you can talk to.
One of the biggest problems about being a general is the higher you get up in any organization, particularly the military, you reach a point where you no longer have suggestions, you only have orders. Is that something you've seen in those people you talk to? I know they don't have the opportunity to talk to somebody, but also they can't really bounce ideas off of their peers because they become orders, not suggestions.
Well, here's what I found. When I was at the Naval Academy, I met a gentleman who was a captain at the time, and he became a general in the Marine Corps, right? And I also have a classmate that's a general in the Marine Corps. But when I listen to people over 20, 30 years talk about those individuals, what they say is General so and so, whenever I talked to him, I felt like I was the most important person in the world. And all these people admired them for that. So it's kind of the flip side. You think that a person's high and all they do is bark orders, but those that are high are normally those that are high and are good are very, very humble.
Oh yeah, I love that. The thing I was thinking about was it wasn't if when that captain or general is talking to, even if it's a personal thing, they have to also be though careful on the conversation because they can't if they said, man, I wish something like this would happen, that's taken more as an order versus a wish. Or maybe I'm wrong about that.
Mm, I think bonds can be developed from the highest rank to the lowest rank. Now there are, there you can't fraternize, but at the same time, you can be a genuine, caring person at any level. And you can even have privates minister to generals.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Now, how did you take that and bring it into your family life?
Well, one of the things that I was dating my current wife at the time, and she gave me an ultimatum. She said, "We've been dating for this amount of time, and I need to know where it's going, or I'm not gonna just waste my time in this relationship, right?" So what was hanging me up was I wasn't confident that we were aligned with our goals and what we wanted to do in life, right? So I took her through this process, this gold mine training process that I went through at Procter Gamble when I was there, right? And basically what it does is it takes you through a process to figure out what's important to you and how you prioritize things. So I took her through the process. And when I listened to what she said as far as what she wanted as a family and what she wanted as goals and things like that, we were aligned. So then that got me off the dime and I said, okay, let's set a date.
Oh, nice. That's pretty cool. Okay, so now that you mentioned the P&G process, what what are your goals and what and how do you prioritize them?
Yeah, my goals in life are pretty simple now. I basically try to help individuals get clear about what they want to work on because you can't work on everything. Help them develop strategies and then put together plans. Okay, so that I do that with young people, athletes. I do that with corporate executives, church members. So basically, I think that my gift, and this is the key thing, I think is understanding what my gift is. And I think my gift is the ability to help others get better, maximize their potential. So that's applicable any place that I am, any place that I go. And with what I see as the world today, there's a ton of opportunity for that gift to be utilized.
Mm, yeah. What was going through my head is do we want to talk about the world today? And I'm going to say, yeah, let's not do that. I we could spend another couple hours just doing that one, and that'd be fun. Um, but it would be a different type of show. Um, what was the top lesson? You told me about the top lesson from the military. What was the top lesson from P&G, Procter and Gamble?
PG. I think the top lesson there was how important it is to have different people with different ideas weigh in on a problem and then be able to listen to those ideas, even though they're different than what you think it is. Okay. And stepping back and being the last one to talk as opposed to the first person to talk. So you get everybody's ideas and then figuring out a process to get the best ideas and have everybody buy in. That's what I learned at Procter and Gamble. When I went to Procter and Gamble in '81, the leadership of the company wanted to hire the same multicultural mix as was in the community. So it's 40% African Americans when I got there. 20% of the managers were African American. 20% of the managers were women. So when we did visioning sessions, which you basically determine where you're going to go, we would have people from all different levels and all different backgrounds. It took us longer to get to where we wanted to go, but when we came up with that product and everybody was bought in, it was it was outstanding. And that facility, which was a paper plant, was the best performing paper plant in the entire Procter and Gamble system.
Hmm. So if we're going back what's interesting is your top lesson from the military is you basically were able to make friends and acquaintances that were friends for life. Were you able to do that out of Procter and Gamble? Or is that I mean, probably not to the same extent, but were you able to carry that over there as well?
I was. Yep. Yep. I did. And learn from some of the best of the best. So when I'm at Procter and Gamble, for example, my first boss was also a Naval Academy graduate. So,
Mm.
I kind of get a jump start on what that is. So what does that do? So what that does is we're both uh, we do what we say we're going to do. You know, we're always telling the truth. We never quit. So you got some of those basic values. So you mount on that. So if I tell him I'm going to do something, he knows it's going to get done, and vice versa. So that just speeds up the process, speeds up the results, and jump starts the career.
So I have to tell you, I'm listening to you, and I'm looking at your last name, and just I want to point out it's Sharperson. And the only thing I would do, like, it's, dude, you are definitely a sharp person. So thank you for just emulating your last name. And I'm thinking about at whatever time whoever decided to put your last name, probably the biggest question is should it be one P or two, right? I'm thinking about the hyphenated sharp dash person, but so tell me about your methodology that you apply and you documented in your book.
So the way the book is designed, it's all stories that I've done. So it's not theory. It's kind of like this is what happened. For example, I'll give you a quick story. I was in the facility that I was in. We had an accident, and a technician lost his hand. So we had a meeting. My boss had a meeting with all the managers and leaders about that incident. Okay, so I'm sitting in the meeting, and he talks, and then he says, "Does anybody else have anything they want to say?" So I started talking, and he shut me down and talked over me. Right. So then he came back to me and he said, "Okay, Carl, you can say something." I said, "So I'm good." Okay. Now I had enough skills to understand that there's a time and a place for everything, right? So I leave there and I'm boiling, right? In my neighborhood, I happen to see his boss, right? So I talk to his boss and he says, "What's going on?" I tell him the story. He says, "Well, you need to go back and have a conversation with him." I says, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." So I'm thinking to myself, okay, what kind of conversation do I need to have with my boss about that? So this is what I said. I said, "Ron," I said, no. I started off by saying, I said, if you and Bob were in a meeting and you were talking and Bob cut you off, how would you feel? He says, "I wouldn't feel very good." "Why are you talking about that?" I said, "Well, that's what you did to me in the meeting that I was in." I said, "I was talking, you cut me off, and I wasn't finished." I said, this is a free country. Nobody will ever keep me from talking. Right? He apologized. So that's in there. I mean, so as well as many others. So that's an example. I talk about my cancer journey and how people poured into my life doing that. I talk about learning from the best of the best. One of the things that I did was I would meet with people that were a level too high, higher than me, and I said, "This is me. Tell me a little bit about yourself." We would have a bond, and I'd say, "Well, if you were me, what would you do? What would you tell me to do if I wanted to be a plant manager?" And they told me, right? So, and I take that information and I execute it. So it shortens the amount of time for me to get to where I want to be. I talked to the fastest tracking plant manager at Procter Gamble at the time, and this is what he told me. He said, "When I have my first meeting with my first boss, the first thing I do is I say, what do I need to do to maximize my pay?" Not what do I need to do to get promoted? Not what do I need to do? What do I need to do to maximize my pay? That's a
Really?
whole that's a whole different level. Because if your pay is maximized, everything else follows. Follow the money. But oh, again, those are some things that I learned at Procter Gamble.
Interesting. I love the thought process. So you're thinking if you come in with an open heart, with an open mind, and you go, what do I need to do to maximize my pay? Is there a potential of the boss taking that in an incorrect way?
Probably so. But if they are, then you know what kind of boss you have.
Ooh, well said.
I mean, you could say I want to maximize my pay, and I figure if I maximize my pay, I'm helping you. Now, well, here's the other thing. So even before this conversation, the first conversation I have with my boss is, I'm here to help you do what you can do and help the company. That's my number one priority. So that hopefully is off the table when I say maximize.
Oh, good, good. Because I was thinking that's always the first conversation.
Right,
Yeah, thank
right.
you. Thanks for correcting. I threw it up there. It was a softball and you hit it. And thank you. So, what are the top three lessons that you think any reader will take out of your book?
One lesson is quitters never win and winners never quit. Some of the most powerful lessons slash results slash accomplishments that I have done have occurred because of some resistance, some fire, some adversity, right? So if you if you have a tendency to quit when times get tough, then you're not going to maximize your potential.
All right, that was one. Give me two and three.
Yep. Two is do what you say you're going to do. If I tell
Uh,
somebody I'm going to do something, I feel bad if I don't do it. I get
integrity.
physically ill because I don't want to waste people's time. Now, 80-20 rule, there's only 20% of the people that do what they say they're going to do. So if you do that, you separate yourself and you're able to catapult a bunch of other people.
Nice.
And the last one I would say is all about relationships. Nobody gets to where they are without having healthy relationships.
Hmm. Oh, those are great lessons. So, just so people here, give me the title of the book.
I have two books. The first one is called Sharp Leadership, Overcome Adversity to Lead with Authenticity. And then my second book is called Sharp Leadership, Parenting Principles for Rearing Young People. It's all stories about my 36-year-old son and my 33-year-old daughter.
Ah,
How
love
do you
it.
start with the end in mind? How do you make sure that they have the skills when they get 18 to be able to have healthy, happy, productive lives?
Yeah, technically, there's no book on parenting, but it's good to read other people's journeys. So thank you for that. Hey, so we got just two more questions. So hang out with us. Well, I love that. The and stick around for the last one. It's always the best question. So Carl, if people want to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that?
I'm on LinkedIn, Carl Sharperson Jr., Facebook, Carl Sharperson Jr., as well as I have a website, www.carlsharpersonjr.com. If you just Google my name, you'll see all kinds of things, and you can reach out to me on my website, do an intake form, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn. We can have a conversation, see how we can help each other.
Love that. Thank you. And finally, what? Tell me a little bit more. Is there, based on this conversation, was there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't? What would you like to ask yourself?
Well, somebody asked me a question on a podcast that I thought was pretty thought provoking. And the question was, what are you most proud of? And when I thought about it, I said, the thing that I'm most proud of is the fact that I have written two books that documents my take on how to navigate this world and be productive. And another one that's kind of my strategies on how to rear healthy, happy, productive young people. So when I'm gone, my relatives as well as others will be able to learn from my lessons in life.
Hmm. Nice. Yeah, I would probably say to me when I think about that, I think you've got the proper definition of the word legacy. A lot of people think legacy is you put your name on the side of a wall. But to me, legacy is, and this comes from Marshall Goldsmith and a ton of other people, legacy is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And you're a living example of that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. It was incredible to sort of dive in a little bit deeper and to see that consistency and the credibility that you bring to the table.
Thank you. It's a pleasure's mine.
Oh, so listen, you're still here. This is your time to spread some cred dust. Click on the like button, share with your friends, pull out those quotes that were really important to you, and I look forward to seeing you at the next session of Leaders Living Their Values. Take care, everyone. Bye now. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you found value in today's episode. Like, subscribe, and share your aha moments on your preferred platform. Remember, credibility starts with clarity and living your values. Learn more at mitchelllevy.com. Until next time.